Welcome, everyone, to Rutgers at the Voice of College Football. I'm here with my fantastic co-host, Gabriel Pickup, and Donovan Gibbs, who plays for Long Island University, just coming off of a 29-11 win over Duquesne. Congratulations, Donovan. So we're going to talk about Ohio State tonight. Does Rutgers have a chance to be competitive, or dare I say, pull the upset against Ohio State? Gabe, what do you think?
Do you want a one-word answer, or do you want the in-depth answer? I'll give the in-depth answer, because this program, after a nice win against Maryland, deserves some attention more than just yes or no. It's tough because Ohio State's whole identity this year has been they have a variety of receiving weapons that can match up against any secondary in the nation. And while we have been a better secondary of late, we have not faced a receiving core this good since Oregon, and Oregon won by 46 points against us. So what's the motto to getting a Rutgers win this year against Ohio State? And it sounds crazy to say in theory, but just what could they do? What could they do is play a game of putting up a fast pace on offense and matching it with trying some things on defense, some new schemes, some blitzes, perhaps some double teams on Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate, trying some things, maybe punching the football a little bit more when C.J. Donaldson has the ball, when Bo Jackson has the ball, just having fun and on offense matching their fast pace. Julian Sayin does not make a lot of mistakes, so Ethan cannot make any mistakes himself. And he's coming off of a week where he had the best PFF grade in all of college football. That's how you bounce back after putting up a terrible stat line against the bad Illinois defense. So Ethan's got the hot hand. Antoine Raymond with the workload of the year, perhaps of the decade. And Ian Strong with the hat trick. We need to carry this momentum offensively and play defense by having our offense put up points.
Donovan.
My motto for Ohio State versus Rutgers is 3 words: any given Saturday. And that's the chance that I'm giving Rutgers, because any team can be beaten in the Big Ten, especially in the Big Ten. We were just watching a Penn State team be 36 seconds away from beating the number 2 team in the nation with the interim head coach and a backup quarterback. So I can't really say that Rutgers doesn't have a shot at all. There's still a possibility for a Rutgers upset, and I'm hoping for a Rutgers upset, because it's going to be an interesting challenge for Rutgers to see, as Rutgers currently has like one of the better passing offenses in the Big Ten, and that's going to be versing against one of the best passing defenses in the entire country in Ohio State. A passing defense that doesn't really give up over 250 yards per game. The only quarterback to really throw on them has been Damon Williams for Washington. So the fact of just, can Ethan Kilcomanis be able to do something that a lot of other Big Ten quarterbacks have not been able to even think upon, is going to be the interesting matchup here. And as well as these receivers, I'm excited to see what Ohio State has planned in order to try to cover KJ Duff, because we just seen it over the last couple of weeks. KJ Duff is getting more and more comfortable being that security blanket for Ethan, and with Ian Strong coming off of a 3-touchdown game, I truly can see Ohio State trying to say that they're going to put their best on Ian Strong, and I'm excited to see if KJ can win that battle against potentially their number 2 or their number 3.
Yeah, when I think about this game, I think of something that Coach Schiano said a few weeks ago when he was talking about the defense and the team as a whole. He was saying, what matters each week is that we make incremental progress. Not that we're going to suddenly be an amazing team, but that we're moving in the right direction and making progress. So what I'm looking for this Saturday, I'm not expecting an upset of Ohio State, but what I am expecting or hoping for is that we make incremental progress. And what does that mean to me? Well, it means being competitive in the first quarter. It means being down at the half, being competitive at the half. I mean, if you look at Ohio State, at the half against Washington, they were up 7-3. At the half against Ohio, a team that we beat 34-31, they were up 13-3. Against Penn State, they were up at the half 17-14. Against Illinois, they were up 20-3 at the half. And against Wisconsin, they were up 17-0 at the half. What I'm looking for is that shows progress. So I don't want to see us getting blown out in the first half. I want to see it be reasonably competitive. And if they can do that, then I think that it's something that Rutgers can be optimistic about. I also want to see, us challenge them a bit, on offense. I mean, they have a great secondary. Caleb Downs anchors that great secondary. I want to see our players, Ian Strong and KJ Duff, really step up against elite competition, because when we've been good against bad teams like Purdue, okay, like Maryland. I want to see us at least, have them take us seriously, and that's going to be the barometer that I'm going to measure this by.
Yeah, what scares me is we faced Purdue, we scored 27 points. Ohio State faces them, and Ohio State scores 34. And we're a really good offense, but they're clearly a better offense. Ohio State against Illinois. Illinois doesn't have a good defense. Ohio State scores 34. We score, 10? We scored 10 or something like that. Ohio State faces Minnesota. They put up 42 against Minnesota. We put up 28. Washington, Ohio State puts up 24. We put up 19. So, Ohio State against Ohio, they put up 37. We put up 31 and only 3 points in the second half, I believe. So, and then you look at the defense. The defense hasn't given up more than 16 points all year, and that was to Illinois. And then aside from that, their highest other game was 14 to Penn State. And then besides that, 10 to Purdue, and then it's all single digits. So the fact that their games are just so lopsided too, that's what scares me. Now, they haven't done a 70-0 like they did when they faced Grambling State outside of that game. The only other instance would maybe be the Minnesota game. But my point is, they've faced damn near the same competition that we've faced, and they've looked not just much better doing it, but we've also just looked worse against them, because we've, for instance, against Minnesota had fundamental errors. Illinois, we had fundamental errors on offense all game, which is weird because the whole season the theme has been, where has the defense been to match the offense? That's why I'm saying the offense needs to set the tone. Usually you would say the defense needs to set the tone, but to me the offense has to show that the defense can have a few plays where Julian Sayin finds Jeremiah Smith on a 40-yard bomb, or Carnell Tate, and he takes it to the house. Basically what I'm saying is we need to have plays on offense where we prove that we can keep up with our defense's lopsided mismatch against their offense. That's the only way that the defense will feel inspired, is if they make a few mistakes and they say our offense has our backs. Let's keep putting out this effort and change things and, make adjustments like we have in the past 2 second halves.
I'm putting more of the challenge on the defensive side of things compared to the offense, because right now, especially with how Rutgers has been playing over the last couple of weeks, excluding the Oregon game, we have seen the offense, for the most part, outside of also Illinois, rise to the occasion. They rose to the occasion against Purdue. They rose to the occasion, especially last week, especially in the running game, which we can get into later on after this. And we've seen them set the tone against Iowa. We saw them trying to stay in it with Minnesota. And what has this defense really done outside of last week's game against Maryland and Purdue for the most part? So if Rutgers' defense is able to just get a stop once in a while, if they can get a stop on the first drive, that would do major, it would be a huge confidence boost for the entire team. If Rutgers' defense is just able to say, we got your back, like Gabe just said, for the offensive side of things, I feel like it will definitely just boost the entire team's hope of maybe we can get this one, or maybe we can keep this one close. Because when we've seen Rutgers' defense go up against any sort of top 25 school, whether it was Washington, whether it was Iowa, whether it was, you can say as well, Minnesota, because they were ranked, you can also say Illinois, we've seen them give up a lot of yards and a lot of passing yards and a lot of rushing yards on the defensive side. And if they can't do that, if they can't stop Ohio State, it's going to be a long day for Rutgers' offense, knowing that they're going to have to play from behind from the opening kickoff.
Yeah, and I think, look, when I think about this game, I don't think our defense is going to be able to hold up against their offense. I mean, Julian Sayin's got wide receivers that are NFL bound, Carnell Tate, of course, Jeremiah Smith, who's only a sophomore. They have very strong running backs, and they have a solid offensive line. I think that what the defense needs to do is to really be complemented by the offense. Okay. Now, defensively speaking, I think they need to have a bend but don't break philosophy. Keep the receivers in front of you, in the red zone. Try to limit it to field goals. But at the end of the day, the defense is not going to hold up against Ohio State. So to be competitive, it's going to depend on the offense. Number one, not making any turnovers. Number two, trying to win that time of possession and put together sustained drives to keep that offense off the field and to show the kind of consistency that, they really haven't shown throughout the season. So I think that it really is going to come down to complementary football on Saturday. Can the offense stay on the field long enough to limit the amount of times that Ohio State has the ball, and can they sustain drives? So I'm really curious against Caleb Downs in that secondary how our receivers are going to do. Now, if we get into a situation like against Oregon where we're turning the ball over, we're going 3 and out, it's going to be a long, long day. So, like I said, I'm looking for incremental progress, which means doing the little things right, playing complementary football, winning that time of possession to make it competitive enough where we could walk away saying, all right, we lost, but we can lose with some optimism.
Yeah, and also, Donovan, you mentioned the defense last week being good for the most part. I agree. I think that aside from the opening drive and a couple other runs by Malik Washington, I thought the defense was good. But if you want to elaborate,
They turned it on in the second half. In the second half, they turned it on.
yeah, I would say so.
Like they held Washington. They only held Maryland to 3 points in the second half. Kind of a similar situation that we saw earlier in the year. It felt like this defense was getting more comfortable. They were able to force a turnover as well. Jet Eli now having a turnover in 3 of his last 4 games. So that's why I can just see that if this defense is just able to keep that confidence from this Maryland game onto Ohio State and just try to see what they can do in the first quarter, because Rutgers right now has nothing to lose. So that's why I can see this defense playing with a little extra juice and being able to say, we have Ohio State's potential college football playoff future in our hands.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, with Penn State being so close against Indiana, we're adjacent to Penn State, and Ohio State's adjacent to Indiana. So why can't we do the same thing?
Well, I think it's going to come down to, and Jason alludes to this, we've been talking about KJ and Ian all season, but how are they going to do against that Ohio State secondary? We've talked about how Ian wants to be in the NFL. Okay, well, here's your chance. Here's your chance to show how you're going to play against elite competition. And I also think there's one critical kind of intangible in this game, and that is that Rutgers is going to be playing for bowl eligibility against Penn State. So the mindset that they come out with after Ohio State is going to be critically important, because we just saw Penn State push Indiana to the wire. So I think it's so important, like I was saying, for there to be incremental progress such that we're reasonably competitive at the half. Ohio State has to take us seriously. If it's a blowout like it was against Oregon, that's not going to bode well going into Penn State. So I think we've got to take things away from this game that are going to create momentum and, dare I say, setting the stage for a possible upset against Penn State and a bowl eligible team.
Well, unfortunately, Ryan has elements of Nick Saban in him. And we were talking about Nick Saban on Saturday and how he would never take a team for granted and never take a matchup for a win off the rip. Ryan Day is the exact same way. He doesn't let teams stay close. Illinois was close for a little bit, but outside of that, by the fourth quarter, every single game was a blowout besides Texas, because Texas they came into the season ranked number 1, and nobody knew better at the time. So they're going to take us seriously, and they might have some of that Oregon anger in them, and that's what scares me too.
I will say Ohio State has to take this game seriously, because to be completely honest, they don't have any other tougher games on their schedule until they play Michigan at the Big House, which, a fun fact, really going to be the first time where two true freshmen are going to be starting in that game for both Ohio State and Michigan in a long time.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to take this game seriously because let's say Ohio State loses to Rutgers. That's going to be a huge blemish on their college football player resume because outside of the win by one score against Texas, they don't really have any other impressive wins so far this season. And they're currently kind of just banking on that Texas win and the dominance that they have shown throughout the season up until whoever they play against in the Big Ten championship game, which is most likely either going to be Indiana if they're able to finish off the year strong or Oregon.
Well, I would say to counter that, they haven't had the signature wins, like the sexy wins per se, but allowing 6 points against Washington and 3 points against Minnesota, I think, is a statement in terms of you can't control your matchup, and here's what we can do defensively against those teams. The offense, they had 42 against Minnesota, 37 against Ohio, 34 against Wisconsin and Purdue, 38 against Penn State. And that's great, but they haven't had, the 40s and 50s. So offensively, I'll give you that. But defensively, I think they've proved their worth.
Yeah, and I think, it's interesting because we're talking about a game that's, Rutgers is going to benefit from a bye week, and Ohio State's going to face the Bruins of UCLA this Saturday. And it's going to be interesting to see how Ohio State plays against UCLA. And I think what we're going to see against UCLA is a very dominant victory. So how does Rutgers game plan, given the bye week, an opportunity to get healthier? But, I think they're going to have to do something different on offense to surprise the Buckeyes and keep them off balance. Any thoughts on what they can do scheme-wise to try to make this competitive?
They got to figure out a way to be able to make their rushing attack somewhat dominant to what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. If they can continue be able to use Antoine Raymond and be able to run between the tackles or try to find some sort of way to incorporate that running game to keep it as strong as it has been, that's going to be a huge boost for this Rutgers offense because we've just seen Antoine Raymond be able to run for 200 yards on primarily inside zone runs. So if they're able to craft up the running game and be able to draw these Ohio State linebackers sideline to sideline before they're trying to hit it up the middle, that's going to only help their offense more because right now Rutgers is a game plan on trying to win this game is keep that defense on the field as much as possible. We saw it against Texas that with this defense is able to get tired, they can crack a little bit. We saw that in the fourth quarter of the first game of the year for Texas when they were able to make that game a little bit interesting. So if Rutgers is going to be able to do that and control the time of possession or try to maintain a lot of that time of possession, they got to figure out how to make that running game look more and more fluid.
I agree 100% about the running game. It's always been Shiano's identity to run. But instead of 41 carries, hopefully more in the 25 to 30 carry range for Raymond's sake and for the predictability aspect. But when we do pass, which I think we still should look to pass the ball often, because of the fact that Ethan is coming off a week where he was the most consistent quarterback in college football per PFF. When we do pass the ball, I think that we should keep Ethan in the pocket. When he can't go outside of the pocket against these guys. He's not going to get those 5 to 10 yard bailout runs, and he's not going to be able to do those Patrick Mahomes throws against that secondary. So keep Ethan in the pocket because when he looked at his best against Maryland, it was when he was throwing the ball over defenders' heads. Now, like I said, I don't think he's going to be able to do that too often. So what do I want to see? I want to see check down passes often, not just to DT, who has been primarily the check down guy. I want to see check downs to KJ and Ian Strong on the outside. I want to see the tight ends get involved because this Ohio State front seven is very beefy, and we need to match that beef, not just on defense, but on offense too. So we need to get Weber involved. We need to get Kenny Fletcher involved, who Kenny Fletcher had 2 clutch catches for us last week. So we need to keep the tight ends involved and check down until we can't check down anymore. And if something breaks free and, deep, great, throw it. Ethan's been throwing that all year. But against Ohio State, I'm just saying from an availability aspect, I don't think that's going to be there. So we need to make the easy throw and kind of break down the defense instead of look for them to break down themselves.
Yeah,
I really am. Like, my apologies. I just want to jump in real fast. I really am interested in watching this Ohio State UCLA game and seeing how often Ohio State's going to be in man or zone coverage. Because if they're in man coverage for most of that game, expect them to be in primarily man coverage against Rutgers. And if they do that, I would love to see possibly any sort of shot plays by Rutgers to see if they can have DT Sheffield or let's say Ian Strong as well in those one-on-one matchups on the sideline or at the middle of the field and see if they can win it. Because right now, especially as you said earlier, Adam, if Ian Strong wants to make it to the NFL, which hopefully he is, and so far from his season, he looks like he's going to be a draft diamond and a perfect draft prospect. His game against Oregon at home, he was held to one catch for 8 yards. If those are going to be really the games that scouts are going to look at when it comes to Ian Strong's career, and this looks like his next great opportunity to put up some numbers because he did show out against Illinois. He had 9 catches for 85 yards, but they're going to look at these games against Oregon and Ohio State to see if how well can Ian Strong play against the best competition.
So my question on that is, how big are scouts going to be looking at Ian Strong having 1 catch versus his quarterback being 8 of 25?
I think they're going to look at both. I think this is the biggest game of Ethan's career because he went 8 of 25 against Oregon. He was very effective, in the victories, against Maryland, of course. But we want to see how Ethan does against elite competition, especially when he doesn't necessarily have the best supporting cast. That's going to determine, I think, whether he tilts towards the NFL or tilts towards, not getting drafted. I think in this game, there's a few things Rutgers has to do. The best way to beat a bully is to punch him in the mouth. So they've got to be physical. They've got to try to run Antoine Raymond right down their throat and show that they're not afraid to try to do so, and they've got to stick with it. Second thing is they have to avoid 3rd and long situations because what's going to happen is Ohio State is going to blitz Cali Kamenis all day, and they're going to play man.
They're going to do that on 1st and 2nd down. Yeah, that's the thing. Matt Patricia is going to look at this and lick his chops.
Right. So that's exactly what he's going to do. They're going to play man and say, try to beat us when we're coming at you and you have 2 seconds to throw. So they've got to be able to run the ball.
And you know how you counter that too? You don't just counter that by running the ball. You counter that by RB screens.
Yeah, the problem with the RB screens is their D-backs are so fast that guess what's going to happen? They're going to throw the ball. They're going to gain a yard. And then
not even that, just their linebackers and just their defensive line is very disciplined. And throughout multiple screen passes this year, they've been able to shut down it.
That brings me to my next point, which was this. I think we need a surprise. All right, we're not going to out-scheme Ohio State. We need Shiano's got to be thinking outside the box. What kind of receiver?
Surprise!
Oh,
surprise.
What a jerk. What can we have some players come out of nowhere that are going to surprise Ohio State? How are we going to take them off guard? Is Ben Black going to make an appearance? Because if we're going to be sticking with going to KJ and Ian on every 3rd down, Ohio State's going to snuff it out, and it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, and Jason, it did work against Maryland, but when he slipped on a banana peel out there, it looked a little concerning to me. I didn't know if he got in. Yeah. I didn't know if he got injured or if he wasn't ready, but I hope that DT kept working on his footwork both this week and next because I agree. DT is too fast not to be in motion 2 to 3 times a game.
That's what I'm saying. If Rutgers wants to use that element surprise, they got to use it on the perimeter. I don't know if it's like if you can say a reverse or be able to do a lot of more plays on the perimeter in that type of style, which is either misdirections or anything of that nature. But right now, especially for Rutgers' offense, I'm just thinking back to when Louisville beat Miami. They were doing a lot of trick plays. They were doing a lot of 2 quarterback sets. Do you see potentially Rutgers and Greg Schiano trying to do something with AJ Sorace and Ethan?
Yes.
I don't see AJ and Ethan being out there, but you know what I do see? I see DT and Antoine running Wildcat.
You want to know why I hate Wildcat? And I will always hate Wildcat is because you know exactly who's going to get the ball and who's going to run the ball. It's so predictable. And that's not going to work against Ohio State. I think what we need to do is we need to be able to focus on one thing and one thing only. The offensive success is not going to depend on Ethan or any of the wideouts. It's going to depend on the offensive line. If they can hold up against Ohio State, then we have a chance to be competitive for a good portion of the game. And I think the offensive line is the key to this game.
Yeah, specifically on the outside, left and right tackles are the two most important positions this game. The interior offensive line has looked all right all year. The outside with Taj White, with Mashoud Giwa, with Ty Needham, it's looked great at times, and it's looked poor at times. So that was the difference with Oregon, wasn't it? That was the difference. I would say against Illinois, but that was really Ethan just having a stinker, and it wasn't really like him. But that was the difference against Minnesota. So this offensive line, I 100% agree, particularly on the outside, because those edge rushers, they're a little scary. Caden Curry on one side, Kenyatta Jackson Jr. on the other. And I have faith in the interior O-line, the IOL, but the offensive tackles, keeping the pressure away from Ethan, that's how you keep him in the pocket and let him get comfortable and lean into his throws rather than pedal backwards or scramble out of the pocket and put up some BS that was never catchable.
Well, Donovan brought up a really interesting point that I was thinking about too. If I were Schiano, we're going against Ohio State, number one team in the country, I'd have AJ start the first series. If for no other reason.
First series?
Yeah, if for no other reason than to surprise the defense and the coaching staff and say, what are they doing? To start the game off with something they don't expect. All right. And then Ethan comes in. I also think we are in a dilemma here on defense because what do we do against those wideouts? Do we drop 8? We drop 8, Julian Sayin is going to have a lot of time to throw. But if we blitz and we go into man coverage, we're in deep trouble. So it looks to me like, what are we going to do? A cover 3 zone? Is that
I would go zone. Yeah, cover 3.
I would say zone. I feel like the Rutgers is going to run a lot of middle field close, just be able to still stay in front of the run while not letting Jeremiah Smith be able to take advantage of the middle of the field, because we've seen Jeremiah Smith be at his best when he's able to run any sort of post or crosser routes throughout his career so far in these 2 years. But I just want to go back to what Gabe said regarding to the interior offensive line and just Rutgers offensive line versus Ohio State's immaculate defensive line. I'm excited to see Taj White versus Arvell Reese. That's a matchup that I want to see, and that's going to be a matchup that if Taj White is able to keep competitive and even on some reps, whether it's in the run or the pass, and just stalemate Arvell, that's going to help out Rutgers' offense so much more, because you're 100% correct. They are facing an uphill battle on the edges of that offensive line, and that's going to be the difference between Ethan being able to have time in the pocket and be able to throw for another 250 plus yard game, or Ethan being harassed and seeing what we saw when Rutgers faced Oregon at home.
Well, I think that we need to do a cover 3 drop back, and it's simply because Julian Sayin is having an outstanding year passing the ball. You wouldn't think he's a freshman. In fact, he should be in the Heisman conversation with how efficient he's been. He's got 2,500 passing yards, 81% completion, a 24-4 touchdown interception ratio, a rating of 192. And guess what? He's running only for 21 yards this year. Now, with that being said, he's going to get 21 yards in the first drive against us rushing, because that's how we made Malik Washington go crazy on us, 134 rushing yards in the first half. But if he does stay true to his identity, that's what we need to do. We need to drop back, not worry about him running the ball. We need to make sure that everyone's covered 2 to 3 men on Jeremiah Smith, on basically every receiver, honestly. But Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate would be the primary 2 that I would say double both, honestly, double both.
Yeah, I think one thing you got to do is force Julian Sayin to make as many low percentage throws as possible. Take away the middle of the field, take away those short routes, and make him go, make him make difficult throws. Otherwise, they're going to pick us apart. And if they are unable to do that, then their focus should be let's bend but not break. It doesn't matter how many yards they get if when they're in the red zone, we can hold them to a field goal more often than not. And I think that that's going to be a big challenge for Rutgers. And if the offense does not control time of possession, if the defense does not control the edge, it's going to be a very long day.
And Ohio State
Yeah.
is so good that they're going to adjust to us too. They're going to see that we've been giving up big runs all year, and they're probably going to tell Sayan to look for the scramble a little more. So that's the only reason why it's a little iffy to drop 7 or 8 back. But I think until Sayan proves that we shouldn't do that, that should be our defensive game plan going in.
I don't see Ohio State really passing the ball until they're in situations where they need to. I feel like this game is going to be kind of similar to what they were doing for the most part at the beginning of the year. I feel like Rutgers is right now, their weak spot has been stopping the run, and they have a running back in Bo Jackson to be able to get those inside zone yards, to be able to run right between the hashes, kind of similar to what Antoine Raymond does for Rutgers. And if Ohio State can get that going, it's going to be a long day for this defense. So this defense is going to have to figure out how to stop just inside A gap to A gap runs. That's really where they've been getting beat so far this year. Outside of QB scrambles, a lot of the success opposing teams have had on Rutgers have been on those inside right up the hash runs.
Yeah, and that's where discipline is going to be so critical on defense because Rutgers is not. Ohio State is not one of those teams that comes out and blows you out with 35 points in the first quarter. I mean, they just grind it slowly and dominate you on defense. And I think what we're going to have to do with Sayan is we're going to have to number one, we're going to have to stop the run. And if we can't stop the run, then it's not going to work. Number two, we've got to force them into third and longs, and we have to force Sayan to make difficult throws. And if we can get 2 or 3 stops in the first half and control the clock, you could see potentially like Penn State, a 17-14 game at the half, just like it was with Ohio. I think it was 13-3 at the half. Now, we beat Ohio 34-31. It's not implausible, but I do think coming out of the gate with something unexpected, like starting A.J. Surace in the first series, that's going to get in the minds of the coaches. What's going on here? Why are they doing this? There's a psychology to the game too. And when you're playing Ohio State, you better pull out every trick in the book if you're going to stay competitive.
Now, my question is, we're talking about how to contain Sayan on defense. When he runs the ball in terms of per game, the most he's had this year was actually against Penn State with 13 yards. Is he going to get more than 13 yards on the first drive against us, rushing the ball? Because I can really see it.
No, I want to see
not on the first drive, because we've seen Ohio State so far this year on the first drive. They've been a run heavy team. They've been a run heavy team.
Yeah, that's true.
And if we stop the run,
so poetic.
If we can stop the run consistently, let's bend but not break. When they get into the red zone, on the 14, 15-yard line, if they can't run it in, they're going to have to throw it. And our chances of defending the pass are better in that scenario than they are otherwise. And I think that's got to be our game plan to limit.
What backs they have? What back are they going to run? Donaldson more or Bo Jackson? Bo Jackson's had a fantastic year, 6.5 yards per carry. He doesn't have the touchdowns. CJ Donaldson does have the touchdowns. He has 9 of them, but only 3.9 yards per carry, and he's still getting 72 attempts. And so I know he's mostly a power back, but it looks to me like Donaldson would be the back you want to see out there over Bo Jackson.
I feel like they're gonna do. Both of them are going to get a steady workload. Both of them are going to get a steady workload.
They've become this year what we thought Penn State's duo running backs would do.
Hey, you heard it here. Start A.J. Surace. Start him on the first series because you're playing Ohio State. The coaches, the staff, the players are going to be like, what the hell's going on? Explain to A.J. who's the starter, of course, but this is a strategic maneuver. Do something different.
Can I tell you why they won't do that? And it's not because of any logical reason. It's because of a stupid reason. Because on the stat sheet, it'll say, Ethan, games played 12, games started 11. They're not going to do it because that's the reason. I think Shiano's going to say, "I can't bench, bro. Maybe I'll play AJ in the second drive and let everyone know beforehand in the locker room, hey, Ethan's still the guy." But because of the statistical value, I don't think that they're going to do that to Ethan.
I would be surprised if they even tried to do that with AJ starting the first series. If they're gonna have AJ down the field, I can really see it in being a situation where they're trying to do some sort of like double pass type of action, kind of similar to what Louisville did against Miami in the first quarter. So I, if they aren't going to do it in that type of fashion or any sort of trick play fashion, it makes no sense for them to start AJ Serace when Ohio State can easily be able to stop that type of QB AJ is. AJ is going to be more of that element of surprise than being a person that you're going to try to run the first scripted series of the game with. Because if the results aren't there, you're going to be stuck with those same plays, and now you're going to put Ethan in a situation where all the plays that he just called, Ohio State kind of already knows what they're going to try to run.
And also, my criticism of putting Dane Pizarro in for his first action in college football, just tie the game up against Minnesota, no big deal to end the regulation. I would have the same criticism if we played AJ because he's only played in garbage time. And it would hurt his confidence if he went out there and his first time playing in competitive Big Ten football. It's just Ohio State. Big whoop.
Guys, we're playing Ohio State, the number one team in the country. If we don't think it's we're going to get eaten alive. I'm all for starting AJ Serace. He can have they could put safe passes out there. The point is to set a precedent to Ohio State that we're doing things differently, and what you've seen on tape is not necessarily what you're going to see today. I mean, I wouldn't mind bringing AJ and Ethan out there for the first series of the game, but this is a game where you have no chance of winning unless you pull a miracle, and I think doing things that people think are crazy might just be something that might get Ohio State to start thinking. And when they start thinking, they don't play as fast.
You don't want to wait for it not to work, though, because so far this year, it's worked playing Ethan. I mean, Illinois is the only game where he played considerably bad.
It's a strategic
Oregon too.
Strategic gimmick for the first series. It can't go wrong. The worst thing that can happen is we go 3-and-out. But then Ethan's back. So it's not like we're necessarily disadvantaging or we're planting the seed in the minds of Ohio State that things are going to be different, say, than what you've seen on tape. And we're going to pull out every trick we can because, let's be honest, there's just talent disparity, and there's a good chance we're going to get blown out. So why not pull something out of nowhere?
I completely agree with that. It's just that if they're going to do that, like I said, it's going to be a 2 QB set. And I'm actually interested to see what type of trick play Greg Schiano is able to cook up against Ohio State, because he has an entire bye week to think and just put the X's and O's together and be able to install any sort of play that he would like to use, whether it's in a red zone type of situation or if it's a shot play type of variant for a trick play. It would be, this is the perfect week for Greg Schiano to do that with this offense, because they're coming into this game having to just unload the tank because they have nothing else to outside of this. It's Penn State, and most likely that game is going to go in the way of Rutgers. At least from my perspective, Rutgers should be able to handle that Penn State team. So right now, this is the chance for a lot of Rutgers players to put their name out and be able to show out against a lot of scouts. And if they're able to use that element of surprise, Greg Schiano would benefit from it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the trick play is going to be more of a wildcat formation simply because we haven't done that all year. And also, what I want to see is 4th and inches. Why not give Antoine Raymond the tush push instead of Ethan? I don't know. I feel like Antoine's the power back. He can get it done.
Speaking of fourth downs, how aggressive do you think Rutgers should be?
Very aggressive. Unless it is 4th and greater than 6 on your own side of the field, go for it.
How about this? How about we start off the first series? You don't like AJ Serace? Okay. How about we put DT Sheffield in the shotgun with Ethan at wide receiver? and we throw a screen to Ethan, and he drops back and goes for a big shot. My point is, you guys may think I'm crazy for saying these things, but crazy things are needed to put it in the minds of Ohio State's players that what they saw on tape is not what they'll see today, to get them thinking and to try to get them off balance when they have the talent advantage, they have the speed advantage. So why not try it? Because look what happened against Oregon. We can't have the same type of game plan. We're too predictable. Give it a shot.
I think I agree with Jason here. We should stick to our identity that worked last week until it doesn't work.
Okay, it won't work it won't work before the first series because
Aren't you a negative Nancy?
I would love to see how the running game works. if they're able to win inside the tackles, because as you said before, Rutgers' strongest part of their offensive line is their interior. So if Gusselinkus, right guard, and their left guard is able to win on the inside and be able to still hit those runs up the hash that Antoine Raymond was able to run for over 150 yards on those specifically, this is going to be able to be in a situation for Rutgers that they can be on a successful side of things, at least offensively.
Sir. So with that being said, I guess you guys got score predictions?
Yeah, I was just going to say, great discussion, guys. I'm the crazy one in this one. You guys are more reasonable minds, but I predict that we might see something from Schiano that's a little out of the ordinary. But, score predictions, and let's start with Donovan, and then Gabe, and then I'll finish up.
As I'm looking at ESPN as we speak, Rutgers has a 3.2 chance of winning, according to ESPN Analytics. And that is still a chance. Yeah. That's all you really need any given Saturday. And the fact that this is going to be at the shoe in front of nearly 100,000 in attendance, this game is going to be sold out. And for Rutgers going into this game, this is going to be their opportunity to try to add a bright spot at the end of the season, especially for a lot of the seniors that are on this team, specifically Ethan, specifically Ian Strong, specifically Eric O'Neill, specifically Gusselinkus. A lot of these guys are going to try to go out with a bang. So if they're able to keep things interesting and let's say an Indiana Penn State fashion, I would say the score would be Ohio State 34, Rutgers 27. But if Rutgers isn't going to be able to stay in this game and its game gets ugly quick, this could be an instance where Ohio State could potentially put up 50 for the first time this year outside of Grambling State.
All right, so put those averages together and Ohio State scores 42, and you keep Rutgers 27 the same?
Yeah.
All right, so 42 to 27 would be the mean prediction. But you say that there's a 1 in 33 chance percentage-wise. Let me ask you this. In class, do they have big classes or small classes?
It depends on your major, but the classes I take, they're medium size. There's around 35 to 50 people.
35, perfect. Okay. Now, do you have any professors that when no one raises their hands, they just pick someone?
Yes.
How often does it feel like you get picked out of that 35?
It feels rare, but when it happens, you're thinking dang, again?
Because I was going to say, for me in college, I felt like when no one raised their hands, I always got picked. And so it might be a 3% chance, but maybe that 3% chance feels a little bigger because of that.
They shouldn't be picking Donovan in class. He shouldn't even have to go to class. He's a college football player. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, man. College athlete first. I don't know why they say
student.
It's more athlete student than anything, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I agree with Jason though. 42 to 27 would be respectable. My prediction is similar to that, but a little bit more for them, a little bit less for us. I'm saying 45 to 21 Ohio State.
Okay, Gabe, I'm very similar to you. I'm going with Ohio State 45. Rutgers 13.
Oh, I hope we can put up. Actually, 21. No team against Ohio State's put up more than 16. But
yeah,
Rutgers has the passing offense to be able to put up more than 16, especially if Ohio State's at a point where they got to put their twos in the game.
Yeah, I mean, let me look at.
Ohio State's twos. I'll say Rutgers ones are better than Ohio State's twos.
I'm gonna do a little bit of pointless devil and angel on my shoulder here. We did only score 10 against Oregon, only 13 against Illinois, only 19 against Washington. But on the counter, we scored 28 against Iowa, 21 in the first half. We scored 28 against Minnesota.
That an Iowa defense that held Oregon to only one touchdown.
Yeah, so I mean,
Man.
yeah, people can say that
7 points in the second half against Iowa.
There was a moment in time where Iowa looked like they were going to win a game where their quarterback, Mark Ranowski's longest pass was 9 yards. There was a moment in
Ranowski is so
time during that game.
overrated, it's ridiculous.
But he's just like Jalen Hurts. He wins.
Ugh, the comparison is making me nauseous. But yes, I suppose that's technically correct. Well, guys, great discussion. And as always, we appreciate the comments. Jason, always good to see you. It's going to be
Shout out, Jason.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
interesting to see what happens on November 22nd. But we'll still be back here next Monday to continue this discussion and to talk about the state of Rutgers football. Won't be here this Saturday because they have a bye week, but we will be here 7 p.m. next Monday. And as always, we thank you for being here. If you like the show, hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, go Scarlet Knights.
Go Scarlet Knights.